Moving on to a crime story now. 5 Bulgarian fraudsters have been jailed after pulling off Britain's biggest ever benefit scam. It saw them plunder more than £50 million of taxpayers' money. The gang used fake IDs to make around 6,000 false universal credit claims over 4.5 years, while flaunting their luxurious lifestyles on social media. Joining me now is Roy Ramm, former commander of specialist operations at Scotland Yard. Thank you for joining me, Roy. First question. Good afternoon, mate. Listen, how the hell did they get away with this for nearly 5 years? 54 million quid.
I think that's a question that the government needs to be asking itself in terms of the preventive measures within the department to stop this kind of fraud. I mean, you know, £54 million. It's twice as much, more than twice as much as Britain's largest robbery. And to put it into context for the public, I think, you know, you're looking at the funding for something like, I don't know, about 130 health centres. You know, wow. It's a colossal amount of money. And you would think that the measures within the DHS they really ought to be there to detect this kind of fraud early on. I mean, I congratulate the guys that have put together the case. It was obviously very well structured, so much so that the defendants pleaded guilty, which is fairly unusual these days. You know, the case was strong, but it was probably 3 years late. You know, this should have been stopped a long time ago. And I think the one, you know, we always hear lessons have been learned. Let's hope that the lessons that have been learned in this particular case, you know, stop this proliferation of organised crime, because this is what it is, being able to commit this magnitude of fraud.
Yeah, when I was 18 years old, I was on job seekers allowance for about 3 months in between finishing school and starting university. And I had to go to the job centre every single week, show them forms that I've been doing to see that I've been applying for jobs. If I missed one session, that was it. My benefits were dropped. So what is it these guys were doing to get away with it for 4 years? But then also, what did they do that raised suspicion and made the authorities think, all right, these guys are doing some kind of fraud?
OK, well, you know, looking at what's been reported, it's clear that these people had proper links into organised crime. They were able to produce counterfeit documentation to support these applications. The likes of, you know, you and I that might go along to an office and make a claim, we're there in person, you know, probably don't want to be there, but are there for out of necessity. These people have structured this organisation so that they have the false documents, the false identification, and the huge number of false identities. And I think that in some way, the society's kind of fear of challenging anybody that's seeking benefit has gone too far. You know, it is public money and it deserves to be spent with caution. And looking at this case, it's quite clear that the checks and balances that are there are not strong enough, just not strong enough.
So this is the biggest benefit fraud ever committed in the UK. But would I be right in saying this probably is not a one-off? This is happening. There must be many more cases of this, surely.
Well, do you know, as a result of this case, I just had a look at some of the numbers, and they're talking about, I think it's £11 billion in universal credit fraud over 2 years. £11 billion. And I'm sorry to keep on using, you know, these sort of medical analogies, but that's 22 brand new £500 million hospitals. That's the scale of this in 2 years. You know, can you imagine all these people that are in hospitals where the ceilings are falling in, thinking, well, actually, we could have had a brand spanking new hospital for £500 million if the government had been able to stop £11 billion worth of fraud on, you know, on universal credit alone. This is a big case, but it's 0.25%, 0.25% of the estimated fraud on DHS in the last 2 years.
That's absolutely incredible. That is ridiculous. But the UK, we're a soft touch, aren't we? These Bulgarians would not go to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and try and commit fraud over there because they'd be treated properly and justly. But over here, what's going to happen to them? Couple of years in prison?
Well, Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said. We have become a soft touch for crime. There is no doubt about that. The number of international organised crime gangs operating in the UK, whether it's fraud, whether it's the importation of drugs, whether it's other areas of crime, it is truly astonishing. And we are now forced with a position where these people have been convicted. They're going to come up for sentence in a few weeks' time, I understand. They will be sent to prison, one expects. So then you and I and the rest of the taxpayers are going to be paying whatever it is it costs to keep somebody in prison a year, probably £300,000 a year per person, something of that nature. But then they must be deported. We need to tighten the borders. We need to be more robust, and frankly, we need to be a lot harsher in the way we deal with these people.
Yeah, I mean, so you're right. They steal our money. Then we have to pay for them to be in our prison. When they're released, actually, I don't want them sent back. I want them put in some kind of chain gang and they can work off the debt. Until that 50 million is paid, they can keep on filling our potholes and picking up our litter.
Well, yeah, that would be nice. What I do hope is that the Crown Prosecution Service and the DWP are going to work hard to try and recover some of this money. I don't hold out an awful lot of hope. It's probably been distributed within Bulgaria and within the organised crime group to such an extent it'll be very hard to trace. But as much as we can do to disrupt it and appear to deal with these kinds of crimes robustly might act as some kind of a deterrent to others.
Yeah. Roy Ramm, thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure.